All right, so Joe Biden is dealing with some pretty historic lows in terms of his approval rating this early into his presidency. And so instead of actually going out and fighting for the agenda that the American people overwhelmingly want him to pass, namely, for example, everything that he just let get cut out of his Build Back Better agenda, instead of going out and fighting for that agenda that the American people actually want, he is deciding to spend his time implicitly attacking the most popular thing that he has done so far in his presidential administration. So I got a clip here for you guys, and I don't want to be entirely unfair to Joe Biden because he does mention the supply chain issues that have been driving the large majority of inflation that people have been feeling in their everyday day-to-day lives, but he still decides in this clip to attack the $1,400 crumbs of checks that he sent out to the American people months ago. Literally at the beginning of the year, he sent out these $1,400 checks, and he is saying that these are actually a reason why inflation has been happening within the U.S. economy. So let's go ahead and listen to Joe Biden here, and then I'll explain why this is entirely bullshit, not only politically, but also economically. So let's go ahead and hear from Joe Biden.
It can delay shipment of furniture or clothing, reduce worldwide supply, and driving up prices here in America. And the irony is people have more money now because of the first major piece of legislation I passed. You all got checks for $1,400. You got checks for a whole range of things. If you're a mom and you have kids under the age of 7, you're getting $300 a month. And if it's over 7 to 17, you're getting $360 a month, like wealthy people used to do when they get back tax returns. It changes people's lives. But what happens if there's nothing to buy, you got more money, you compete for getting it there, it creates a real problem. So on the one hand, we're facing new disruptions to our supplies. At the same time, we're also experiencing higher demand for goods because wages are up as well as people have money in the bank. And because of the strength of our economic, close the port in China.
Okay, so that's just a short little clip there, but understand there were so many things about what he just said that were verifiably false. First of all, he said wages are up. No, actually, we got the data. We got the economic data from last month, and due to inflation, wages actually decreased. Okay, so wages are not up. That's not the primary driver of inflation. What is the primary driver of inflation, which I've discussed on this channel multiple times now, is primarily the supply chain issues. Okay, gasoline is up, which he mentioned actually in the clip above this. He mentioned gasoline prices. I talked about this in my video 2 days ago where we talked about OPEC and Saudi Arabia basically restricting their oil supply so that the gas prices are felt and are going to increase here in the United States. So there's a multiple, it's a multifaceted reasons for why inflation is happening in different sectors of the economy right now. But one of the reasons that it is not happening, or something that you could not attribute to contributing to inflation, would be $1,400 at the beginning of this year. This man, Joe Biden, instead of focusing in on the supply chain issues and trying to fix those supply chain issues, is deciding to attack, implicitly at least, the $1,400 crumbs that he gave out to the American people at the beginning of the year. Okay, we are talking about like months and months and months ago, these checks were sent out. They were one-time checks that were, if you remember at the time, were supposed to be $2,000 checks that he ran on, that I remember both my senators here that were running in Georgia, both John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, ran on $2,000 checks. Joe Biden promised $2,000 checks, and it got cut down to $1,400 checks, and then they tried to play this game of like, oh, well, that's actually $1,400 plus the $600, what can we do? We already gave you $2,000 in total, blah, 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 right? So they took this massively popular policy initiative of giving stimulus checks, which the American people, as we were about to get to, wanted monthly stimulus checks. They gave out a one-time stimulus check at the beginning of the year, and this is what Joe Biden decides to implicitly attack as one of the main causes of inflation. It's just absolutely fucking crazy. And again, this is coming at a time where Joe Biden's approval is sitting at 38%. 38%. Are you fucking kidding me? This is a guy who people were calling the next FDR. Okay, I don't know if anybody needs a refresher here, but FDR did not have a 38% approval rating this early into his administration. Why? Because he was actually overhauling the American economic system, although he was actually protecting capitalism in the long run, but that's a different conversation to have. FDR was massively popular. He won almost by a 50-state landslide for a reason, and it was because of his economic progressive populism, which we know for a fact is much more popular among the American people. And so Joe Biden, instead of diving headfirst into that economic FDR style left-wing populism, instead he's choosing to attack the measly crumbs in a one-time $1,400 check that he sent to the American people at the beginning of the year, okay? It is just absolutely, completely pathetic. If he wanted to actually improve his current approval rating, then he would send out more stimulus checks. This is literally a way that, to put it crudely, you could bribe the American people. If you want a little bump, then send them some material relief. That's what they actually want from you guys. And instead, he's choosing to attack those and use that as one of the primary justifications for why inflation is happening within the American economy, which there really is no evidence that that is one of the main causes. Again, it's primarily the supply chain issues, which he did kind of touch on, but again, I don't know why the fuck you would use this as an opportunity to attack one of the most popular things that you did during your administration. And again, just as a reminder, in terms of what people actually were spending this money on, right? He said that it was a lifeline, right? He said that people needed this desperately, right? And that's 100% true. And what did they spend it on? Well, here from CNBC, over half, okay, a majority of U.S. households who got these stimulus checks spent it on essential bills like rent and food. Okay, so in other words, Joe Biden's narrative that he is trying to form here is basically telling you that the capitalist system is so unsustainable that if you send out relief to people during an economic crisis to where they are basically just barely able to scrape by, and many people did not scrape by, okay, let's be very clear about that, but where some Americans are able to barely scrape by because of the crumbs that you gave them and maintain their housing and maintain their food security, that somehow is collapsing the American economy. That somehow is a detriment to the capitalist American economy. It's just completely pathetic. These $1,400 stimulus checks, yes, they made a difference in millions of people's lives, but they weren't enough at the time, and they still are not enough now. We still have tons of people who have been evicted, who weren't able to keep up with their rent. We still have millions and millions of children in the United States that are not able to get stable access to nutritious food in their communities, okay? This is a massive problem that Joe Biden barely solved at the beginning of the year, and they should have done monthly stimulus checks. If you wanted a higher approval rating and you wanted to actually materially help the American people, you would have done what over 3 million people signed a signature to get you to do, and that is $2,000 a month stimulus checks, okay? So not only did they not do $2,000 a month stimulus checks, but they negotiated down the one-time $2,000 stimulus checks that they had to $1,400 and then played this stupid game behind the scenes to convince people that they actually weren't getting screwed over. And on top of that, you see here from the polling data, this is from early in the year, about when Joe Biden was about to take office, and they say 65%, a near super majority of the American people, support monthly $2,000 COVID stimulus payments, okay? If you remember, even Kamala Harris supported monthly $2,000 stimulus checks before she became Joe Biden's vice president, okay? So understand, this is a completely massively missed opportunity for the Joe Biden administration. If you wanted a higher approval rating, if you wanted to fix your dramatic collapse in terms of your favorability among the American people, actually materially deliver on the promises that you made when you were running your campaign, okay? The American people are taking notice that during these negotiations with the bipartisan infrastructure framework and the Build Back Better plan, that you are not following through on the promises that you gave them on your campaign trail, okay? All we have left in this completely watered down and gutted Build Back Better framework, which again, if you watched my previous videos, you would know that it's not even guaranteed that Build Back Better passes at all, let alone in its current watered down and gutted form. The American people notice this shit, okay? They understand that you are not delivering materially on the promises that you made them when you were running for president, okay? They understand that. So if you wanted to fix the political situation for yourself, then, I don't know, maybe send out another stimulus check, maybe actually pass the policies that you were promising the American people, like paid family leave or negotiating prescription drug prices, which is literally the top issue for the American people, and which Joe Biden just completely let a handful of corrupt, big pharma, bribed political people like Kirsten Sinema or the handful of House Democrats who are opposing prescription drug price negotiations for Medicare, actually challenge those people, actually go and fight for the things that the American people are asking you to do. But instead of doing that, Joe Biden is using this moment of historic low favorability this early into his presidential administration and using this opportunity to attack one of the only popular things that he has done so far in his administration.